G'day guys, Carl from Go Travel. Today, in the garage with the big girl. About to do something that I was trying to avoid doing. After our last unsuccessful camping trip, I realised I'm gonna have to put a roof rack on the big girl. I miss having an awning. I need the extra space for when me and the girls go. So I bought something a little bit different for the patrol. Instead of going rhino rack or dash rack, I've decided that I'm gonna go with a more traditional cage aluminium platform. But I didn't buy the most expensive one you can get. I actually bought the cheapest roof rack available. 500 bucks delivered to your door. I bought a cane-toed off-road rack. That's actually cool, these backbone designs. It's a little bit different. Hopefully she'll match the big girl, but a couple of nuts welded in. Look, quality-wise, yeah, it's probably not the best, but I think it'll be okay. I think it'll work. Basically, these brackets go in the factory mounting points, just bolts to them, and then that, the rack bolts to the top of it. There's a lot of points for bolts on this, and that is a big ass bag of hardware. So on the roof in the factory gutters, you've got these little plastic plates. I'm going to assume that they just clip in. Oh, there's like a rivet mount there. That's a bit weird. So out of the brackets, 4 are the same and 2 are different. So we'll pop all them plugs off and then we'll just have a look at what's under them and work out what goes where. Sorted out all the hardware. Everything's got a flat washer, a spring-loaded washer. You've got these little rubber washers to go on the bolts to mount the brackets to hold the roof rails on. And they've actually got these extra U-bolts that go on as well, but you got to see if it really needs them. The idea is that they go through the centre there, but we'll have a look at how it all mounts up, then we'll decide whether or not we're going to put them on. But it's a pretty in-depth kit. Like, they even give you an Allen key. Yeah, sure, it's not the best Allen key, but you've got everything you need to be able to mount this system up, which that's a good thing. It's worth mentioning that obviously these brackets have a left and a right side. So as you can see, there's this little bit of a hump here. This front bracket's got that cutout in it, so that one goes on the front. The middle bracket's a specific back bracket, and then the same as the back one. This should be relatively easy. Lint-free cloth. Lint-free cloth, doesn't matter. Just wipe all the dirt out of it. I'm just using some Sally's Celastic, but I'm just going to fill this hole. My opinion on Celastic is I'd rather put too much Celastic on something than not enough. Then I'll preload these bolts. We get the new rubber washer, put that on, and whoop, already dropped the washer. Just get them to sit in place and then we'll screw them in. And hopefully this will just create a watertight seal for us. Get them all nipped up nicely. It actually fits quite nice. Plenty of tightness in it because we don't want to come back and have to redo this. That's it. Repeat that step 6 times. There is some plastic blocks and that in here, but there's plenty of room to run cables in there. So if you do want to put roof lights on, it will actually be quite easy. For me, I said I wasn't putting a roof rack on, and here I am. And I also said I didn't want to put roof lights on this one, but we're putting a rack on, so it's probably going to happen. Now, I should have actually shown you the holes in this back bracket before I filled it full of silicone, but they didn't quite line up right. And that's not fault of the rack, that's just fault of the roof, but I'm hoping that we can still get it in. We'll just see how we go. We should be able to. But if anyone's going to cause us grief, it might be this one. Huh. Well, that was the one I was expecting to be the worst, and that was easy. There you go, no problems at all. I must say, it is hot at the top of the garage. The sweat beating off me. So all I'm going to do is just thumb up this middle screw to start with to hold it in place, and then I'll put the other 2 in, and then she'll sit nicely. I think I'll just lay all these screws in and just leave them loose, so if I need to adjust the brackets, I can slide them back and forward, and then that way we can adjust the roof rack accordingly. That is not a bad looking backbone at all. I like it. I like the look, and I like it something different. I just hope we can fit out of the garage. So we just repeat the same steps on this side. Silicone, washers, and then screw it down tight. There's really nothing to this. It's quite an easy install, to be honest. The rack does look like it has a million bolts in it though, so that might be a bit more interesting. All these holes are painted as well, so just be careful when you're first mounting it. It sort of feels like you're stripping it a bit, but it's just as it's punching through the paint. And obviously we filled it full of silicone as well, so you're sort of fighting a little bit to get them in. I mean, these are the back holes on the opposite side, and they're very similar. The way the metal sort of doesn't quite sit right where it screws in. But the last side was no issue, so hopefully this side will be kind to us as well. Surprisingly, these back ones, even though the holes looked a bit screwy, they were the easiest to get on. Not that any of them were actually hard. All right, now the fun part. Let's get this open and have a look at what it actually looks like. Now, another thing I'm going to say is I'm actually really surprised at how little this weighs. I might have made a mistake. Oh, it might rattle on the road. Anyway, we'll see what it's like once it's on. Now, normally I'd say get a mate to help you lift it on, but what I'm going to do is, because it is actually so lightweight, we're just going to leave the bubble wrap on it and shimmy it across. So it's just slid across halfway on the backbones without touching the roof. Yeah, hopefully with a little bit of luck. That's about where she goes. Roof rack sit up on the backbones with the bubble wrap. Now I've got an idea. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try it anyway. So what I'm thinking, cut the bubble wrap so I can put one bolt in this front bracket, and then I'll do the same in the back. And if it works, we should be able to just pull the bubble wrap off from the other side, hopefully. Alright, just lay one nut and bolt in here. Perfect. We'll get a couple of bolts in this thing, and then we'll just make sure that we can actually drive out of the garage with it on. Moment of truth. Okay, so there is nothing in that. Fits though. So looking at about 5 centimetres, 5.5 worst case. That's from about the highest point on the roof. So really it had a bugger all height, which is good. Unloaded rack, the aerial is still just higher. I definitely like the side of it. I like the side, things look good. Uncertain on the front. The back's here or there, doesn't faze me. Still don't know about the style of rack either, but you know what? I think it's okay for what it is. With the cane toed equipped rack, there's two options. They're both 220 centimetres long. We got the 135 wide. There is a 125 centimetre wide version. The reason we went with the wider version is when you're throwing stuff on the roof, if it gets too heavy or awkward, when it actually falls in, it'll more than likely hit the rack opposed to hitting the top of the car. So you'll keep that nice and dent free. Well, hopefully. I feel that the smaller option would be actually in line with the backbones. You can see it's probably about 5 centimetres that hangs over the side there. Another thing I just want to quickly touch on as well is the weight. So this rack weighs 30 kilos all up, which means you've got 70 kilos left to payload. So the roof of the Patrol is rated to 100 kilos. One of the first racks that I really liked actually weighs almost 50 kilos. And you think, oh, we've still got 50 left. But reality is, you put an awning, you put a light, you put a set of treads up there, you're probably looking at around 20, 25 kilos worth of gear. So which really leaves you with nothing left. It's just good to know what you can actually put on your roof, and realistically, you don't want more rack than what you can carry. Whilst I'm sure the Patrol can hold more than 100 kilos on the roof, you just want to be careful because you don't want something bad to happen. 4 bolts, 4 mounts each side. What's that? 4 times 8. 32 bolts. Geez, that maths took me a lot longer than I like to admit. So 32 bolts hold her on. I didn't actually put the U-bracket bolts on. I just don't really think it needs it. So I thought I'd better grab a quick sample of wind noise. So this is just driving 100 kilometers an hour. As you can hear, I've still got a little bit of tyre noise, but that's realistically about all I've got. So a little bit of drone from the exhaust here and there, but nothing major. So we'll see how this rack sounds afterwards. Righty, cruise set. There's a little bit of noise, a tiny bit. Nowhere near as much as what I was expecting though, so that's alright. Yeah, that's good. Different direction into the wind. You can definitely hear a little bit of wind noise. But realistically, that's nothing that couldn't be drowned out with the radio, so you know what? I think it's still a win. Alrighty, what does she look like? I actually am uncertain on that. I don't love the big sort of gap at the front of it, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's terrible. I think the backbones sit really well on it. I'm in two minds. I definitely think the more I look at it, the more I like it. The way the front of the roof rolls down and it's got that bigger gap at the front, I think that's what throws me off. As far as the backbones go, I reckon it looks good on the backbones. It's the first time I've ever run a rack like this, so it'll be interesting. It definitely makes a little bit of noise, but not as much as I was expecting, so that's a win. But what do you think? Do you think it looks all right? Or do you think I should have bought a more expensive rack? Love to hear your thoughts and opinions, so feel free to comment below. As always, if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, guys, go travel.